I think Ann's not decided she was just going to do a shorter set, and so she's got somebody filling in for just a couple of stories here. Clementine Ryder, I don't know, you may have heard of her. She likes to tell stories, and she had a kind of a spooky thing happen to her that she would like to share. And the one thing I know when I introduce Clementine, she loves applause. Ladies and gentlemen, somewhere around here is Clementine Ryder.
I hate to let a good man go, but sometimes you have to. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a pleasure to be with you. I am Clementine Ryder, and the tale I'd like to share with you happened to me in the great state of Oregon. It was nigh on midnight by the time I left the Grange Hall, the music of the banjo and fiddle still ringing in my ears. I stepped outside in the cool autumn air, full moon just up in the sky, and my horse Calliope was tethered just outside, so I loosed her reins, mounted, and to her as we headed for the woods, to the path that would take us to the little inn where I was staying that evening. As we rode into the woods, the dug fir trees rose up around us, towering inky black against the purpley blue-black sky. And the trees cut off the light of the moon, except in flashes that would fall across our path like a puddle of moonlight. As Calliope went down the trail, I could hear the of the night birds singing and skittering of critters close at hand and some larger farther back. As we came along, we went up a rise and then made a turn. The road made a sharp hairpin turn and plunged down into the forest. And as Calliope negotiated that steep angle, I saw ahead of me down that trail, just coming into a splash of moonlight, there was a figure walking. And as Calliope and I approached, first I thought it was a child. The figure was so slight, but then as I came closer, I realized it was a young lady. She was walking along that trail, lit now and then by the moonlight. She had a long dress on that she had pulled up, the hem in one hand, and her hair was all piled top on her head, but kind of straggly coming down. And she had her shoes in the other hand. She was walking barefoot down that forest trail. Well, I hallooed out to her because I didn't want to startle her coming up upon her, but she made no sign that she heard me. And then I rode up till I was right beside her. I looked down, she looked up at me just in a splash of moonlight, and her eyes were a color I had never seen. Silvery gray with a bit of purple, an unearthly shade. And I said, well, ma'am, I'm Clementine Ryder, and I noticed you walking here. What are you doing out here all on your lonesome? My name's Lavendar, she said. It's my signature color. You might have noticed because of my eyes and, of course, my dress. Well, my beau and I had a falling out during the dance at the Grange Hall, so I'm taking myself home all on my own. Well, can I give you a lift? It's a cold night to be walking. Well, I would take that very kindly. Thank you very much. So I helped her boost herself up behind me on the saddle, and she put her arms around my waist to steady herself, and I said, oh, heavens, you're cold as ice. Here, take my jacket, I said. I shrugged off this jacket, gave it to her. I said, put it at least around your shoulders. Won't do you any good for me to give you a ride home if you catch your death of pneumonia on the way. So I took Calliope and we set off. And I essayed a few conversational gambits, but Lavendar didn't seem inclined to speak. And so we settled into a companionable silence there riding down through the moonlight. And then behind me I heard her voice as she began to sing. Lavender blue, dilly dilly, lavender green, you be my king. dance as we were riding along, and then all of a sudden I felt her scoot down from the saddle behind me, and then I looked and she was standing beside me. She said, "Thank you kindly. My house is just down this cutoff into the woods, so I'll be taking my leave." "Well, can I take you to your door?" "No, no. My parents will give me dickens if they know I'm coming in this late. I will just say goodbye. Thank you very much." And she was gone. Well, I took Calliope, but she refused to move. She just nickered, as if to say, "Clementine, have you forgotten something?" My jacket! Oh, heavens, I thought, she's gone off wearing my jacket. Well, I didn't want to go down and rouse the household and get the little gal in trouble, but I am mighty partial to this jacket. It was given to me by an admirer of whom I was quite fond. So I took Calliope and we went to the inn, but after I slept that night and had a good breakfast the next morning, Calliope and I retraced our steps back down the forest and then down that little cut-off trail into the woods where Lavendar had disappeared. There was a house there, but it was a sorry-looking domicile. There were boards missing from the porch, tattered curtains at the window, but smoke rising out of the chimney, so I dismounted, strode up, and... Well, the woman who answered the door, she had silver hair just skinned straight back. She was a slight little thing. Her eyes were the same lavender hue that I had seen in the girl last night. So I said, "Well, ma'am, hello." I introduced myself. I said, "I believe I gave your daughter, Lavendar, a ride home last night from the dance at the Grange, and by mistake, she's got my jacket. So if I could just see it." Well, the woman was just staring at me. "Well, ma'am, there's no ill will here. This was a mistake. If I could just see Lavendar." "Just a minute," the woman said. She turned, left. When she came back, she was carrying a silver-framed, sepia-toned photograph. She held it up so I could see it. I recognized it immediately. It was the girl I'd given a ride home to the night before. She had her hair all piled up, nice-like, and even in the sepia photograph, you could see her eyes were that unearthly shade. She had on an old-fashioned high-necked blouse. I said, "Well, that's her. That's Lavendar. That's the girl. Is that your daughter?" "She's my daughter. But she's been dead for 20 years. She and her beau, they were leaving a dance at the Grange Hall, and his horse took a fall on that awful hairpin turn in the road. Lavendar was thrown from the saddle. She hit her head on the rock. She died right there by the side of the road." Well, I could not fathom what was occurring, and I started to remonstrate with the woman, but she just got very upset, and I realized I needed to just let things be. So I paid her my respects, but before I left, I said, "Ma'am, could you just tell me where your daughter is buried?" "Oh, it's just a little bit further down this road into the woods. There's a little white church, and her gravestone's out behind it." I mounted Calliope, and we went down where the woman had directed us, and there was a little white church, little graveyard out behind it. And it was not hard to find Lavendar's gravestone. It was there, among the others, a simple gray stone with just her name, Lavendar, and the dates of her brief life. And on top of that gravestone, neatly folded, was my leather jacket.